Hey guys, Jodie here from Decoris Vintage Designs and welcome back to my channel. And in today's tutorial and furniture makeover, I will be making over this cute armoire here. I do love my armoires and I'm wanting to do something quite pretty with this piece and quite colourful, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so I have a bit of a confession to make. When I started painting this piece, I thought I was recording, but it turned out I actually wasn't, so I made a little bit of a mistake there. But this is what it looked like before I did anything to it. And what we have here is just one base layer of buttercream. So that's all we've done so far, guys. So this is what we're gonna do next now. Okay, to get started with, I am using Dixie Belle's Antebellum Blue and Yankee Blue with a round synthetic brush. I am mostly applying Antebellum Blue around those draw edges, using swirling movements, and also I'm bringing some Yankee Blue into some random areas as well, using the same brush. I am leaving a gap in the middle there because I will be coming in with a lighter highlighting colour. So here I am coming in with the gulf with the same brush, which is my highlighter colour, and again just swirling that around. I'm using the Best Dang brush just to airbrush out and blend some of those edges a little bit, making sure to use my water mister so that the paint moves nice and smoothly. I am then using a sponge. It's nothing special, it's literally a sponge that cost about maybe 10 pence from a local supermarket, and I'm just tapping here, and what this will do is it will create some interesting texture and depth, and also it will grab random bits of colour and bring sort of some of the lighter colours into the darker areas and so on and so forth. I'm now bringing some of the Antebellum Blue just around those edges there, and I am also now using Cobalt Blue, which I'm putting again kind of around the edges, blending into the Antebellum Blue, and I'm using the Gulf again as a highlighter colour. This again, it's just to create some different variations in depth, in colour and texture. You just use whatever colours you have lying around, you don't have to use the exact same colours as me. So I continued this blend up into the wardrobe or armoire doors, and I'm using the same brush again, and this is Cobalt with a slight bit of Antebellum Blue mixed in there, and again just using swirly movements. I'm adding then a little bit of Dixie Belle's Blue on top of the Cobalt, and basically all I'm doing here is mapping out where I want some of the colours to be. I then went for a different highlighter colour here, which is Fluff, which is a nice medium white, and I applied some of this in the middle. So this is looking crazy right now, it's not looking blended at all, but don't worry, we're going to get this all nice and blended in a moment. All I would say is that when you apply your colours, make sure you don't go in there too heavy-handed, otherwise you're going to make a really muddy mess for yourself and make it really difficult to blend. Likewise, don't go in there with too much water, otherwise your colours are just going to get sloppy and they're just going to move around everywhere and it's going to make it really difficult to blend. So my next colour in this is Vintage Duck Egg. I'm working in sections, so I've already done half the door and sponged it down, etc, etc. So I've applied a little bit of Vintage Duck Egg, which is going to be my transition colour into some French linen, which is a soft, I'm going to say taupey brown. And again, just following the exact same process, I'm applying French linen just at the top of the Vintage Duck Egg there, using swirly movements, making sure to bring some of the blue into there as well. And here I am transitioning some of the French linen into pine cone, which is a bit of a warmer brown, and that's just to add more depth to this and a bit more of a vintage feel, and using Fluff again to highlight in the middle. Just take your time, especially with that transition from the blue to the brown. Just take your time with it, work it very slowly, making sure you just keep misting your water, and you will get there. It doesn't need to be the perfect blend because it is going to be a vintage style look. Alright, so unusually for me now, I'm going to leave the base here. I really like the little blend that's going on, and I'm a believer in not overcomplicating stuff if it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. So I'm happy. I like the blue fading into the brown. I think it gives it a really nice vintage worn feel. So what I want to do now, just to make this piece pop a little bit, is add, I'm thinking, some vines here, just trailing down, and maybe some flowers up here as well, or maybe some more vines. I'm not sure. I'm going to have a little play. I will add a few contrasting colours. I'm thinking some nice deep pinks, because I think that will contrast really nicely on this, especially with the blue down here. But let's just see how it goes. Alright, so to get started with here, I am using a fan brush, and the colours that I am going to be using for these vines is collard greens. I will also be using a little bit of chocolate and putty to blend into the collard greens. The chocolate will be more of a barky colour, and the putty will just be to highlight some of the branches. I'm just doing very soft squiggles, using a little bit of water to help the paint move, and also making sure my brush is a little bit damp as well. I am then just trailing them down. If you feel like you're a little bit heavy-handed and the branches start to look a little bit stiff, just hold the brush at the top end, and you will just find that it moves a lot more freely then. I'm also using a little bit of Palmetto here. That is just to get a little bit of greenery into this, and I'm just adding and taking away as I feel, adding little bits of different colours, again just to make it look a little less cartoony and to give it a lot more dimension so that it looks a tiny bit more realistic. Once I was happy with the way my vines were looking and dangling, it was time now to fill them out with a little bit of foliage. So for my foliage, I used Palmetto, Evergreen, and also a little bit of Daisy, which is a yellow, just to brighten it all up a little bit. So the way that I am applying the colours, what I want you to think about is where the sun might hit. So the darker colours are going to be at the far right, where it's a lot thicker and there would be a lot more shade. The brighter colours are going to be on top, and also as the veins, I don't know why they're called the vines, I'm sorry. Also when the vines start reaching towards the floor, because that's where I imagine discolouring might happen. It also might be where they're a lot brighter, because that's where the sun is hitting them. So all you have to do here is not overthink it, just add a bunch of greens, a bunch of browns and a bunch of yellows basically, and make sure they're nice and softly blended into each other, and then you will find that your vines start looking more realistic. So at the bottom here I am painting some flowers and some grass, and I'm using similar techniques and similar colours. So I'm using Palmetto for my shadowing and Evergreen for my brighter colour, and I'm just getting the shape right first, including adding a little bit of grass there at the bottom. So I started by outlining this stem with Palmetto, and then I am applying Evergreen over the top just to give a little bit of shading. So just have a think again. In nature there is nothing just one whole colour. There are different variations because of pigmentation in the actual flowers and leaves and things. There's different colours because of shadows and light, so that's just something to think about when you're painting something like this. Also, if you're struggling, just have a look online or go out and take a few photos of a few things and then let them kind of guide you. So to add some highlight to my stems, I am using mint jalep, which is a very minty green, and again this is just where the sun might be hitting the piece, and I'm continuing to mist with water to make sure that my the paint is moving nice and smoothly again. And I'm just thinking here, okay, where might the sun be hitting this flower stem, and I'm just applying some mint jalep in those places. When painting the grass, just do little dashing movements with your brush, just sort of very lightly, like I'm trying to explain this really badly, but just try and lightly dash your brush against the bottom of the piece and move your brush very quickly in different directions to make it look like maybe there's some grass blowing in the wind. And what I'm doing here now is painting some flowers, again still using a fan brush, and I'm using Plum Crazy. I also use a little bit of Barn Red and then a little bit of Fluff for highlighting, and I'm just making sure that this flower looks like it actually has leaves around it. I want it to look like maybe it's blooming and not totally out yet, so I'm just painting some leaves around this and also highlighting and adding some shadows on the flower itself. So next up, I'm using a round artist brush and I'm just painting some different flowers here now in this area. I'm starting with Amethyst and just creating some foxgloves, making them very thick at the bottom and thinner as they go up to the top, putting them in some random areas, and also highlighting again with a little bit of Fluff mixed in with Amethyst, and then just whatever's on my brush, I'm just doing some squiggly lines really in some random areas. Here I'm using Fluff and doing some little dots with a fan brush, and what I'm trying to do here is get some different textures and patterns and colours, so it's almost like an impressionist style. So far away they will look like flowers, but as you get closer you can see that actually it's just a bunch of squiggles and dots. This is a very easy, flowing, abstract way of painting, and I would definitely recommend it if you're a beginner, because it's not particularly technical, it's just all about texture and colour. Here I'm using a little bit of Fluff and creating some wispy lines to make it look like maybe there's some wispy bits of grass in there. So yeah, just get creative with it, just have a play, see what happens, have fun. So what I'm doing here is tapping a little bit of kernel mustard and a little bit of white and things again, just adding lots of different colours and patterns and textures, just to make it look like there is some wildflowers here that are really flourishing and really growing on top of each other to make it look like a real banquet of colourful flowers. Also add a little dashes of colour all over the place, you know, that make it look like they're falling. Maybe there's a few petals and things falling, so just remember to do that as well. So like for example, there's a little bit of a red speck there next to one of the flowers, just sort of dangling in the middle of nowhere, but maybe that's a blossom that's fallen, so just remember to think of things like that as well. Here I'm painting some daisies, just again little dots, that's all it is. So I'm doing a big splodge of yellow and then just doing some little thin white lines just at the bottom there. They don't need to be perfect, you can tell they're daisies, so just remember that you don't have to be perfect with this kind of style. Here at the bottom I'm bringing in more squiggles and colours, and this is just a really free flowing way it's just of painting, it's just a lot of fun. To seal this piece I used Big Mama's clear wax with a chip brush, and this is an oil based wax. It's very natural and a little goes a long way. Sometimes I like oil based waxes because I just feel like it switches up the contrast of the paints a little bit sometimes, and what will happen is after 15 minutes I will come in with a rag, I will remove any excess, and then the wax will start to harden and cure, and it will then protect the paint finish. You do need to wipe away the excess though, because otherwise it will just sit on top. There's only so much that the wood can soak in, so just remember that if you decide to use a clear wax as a top coat. Alright guys, and here's the finished look. I had a lot of fun with this as usual. I have a lot of fun with all my paint finishes to be fair, but this one I think it's quite a nice colourful pretty piece which is perfect for summer. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know as always in the comments what your thoughts are, and also whether or not you enjoy this free flowing way of painting. As always guys, happy painting, take care and bye bye.